Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Music on the Underground podcast, where I talk to musicians from all across Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. Make sure to check out all the artists I have on the podcast, listen to their music, follow them on all their social media platforms, show them some love. And yeah, let's get into this episode.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Music on the Underground here at Algonquin College, just inside of the CKDJ 107.9 Ottawa New Music Radio Room. And today, for this episode, we have Class of 91 here with me today. Hello, guys.
Hey,
hello.
Thanks for having us.
And thank you guys for reaching out. As for those who do not know, they're coming out with their newest album, which is All Guesses Passed Off as Hope, which October 17th.
That's right. Yeah.
And you guys are also having a album release for that as well, which is on October 18th at the Dominion Tavern.
Yep.
With First the Last Stars and Crow's Feet, which I had them on for a little bit a few episodes ago. They were nice to have on. And just to start off, what I like to do in these episodes is do a bit of like an icebreaker type thing. So it's pretty much just like your name, the instrument you play in the band. And I guess starter question, what was your favorite part about the making of like part 1, part 2 that you guys did for the new album coming out?
I guess I'll start. So I'm Brock. I'm the rhythm guitarist, acoustics as well. And on this album, we got some vocal responsibilities. My favorite part, we used the studio for the first time this time, which was a wonderful experience. And I think the other guys will probably touch on that as well too. So being in a studio, getting a sober second outsider look was really quite refreshing.
My name is Ian. I also play guitar and I sing in Class of 91. And yeah, I'm going to kind of build off of what Brock was saying there too. This was our first time actually recording an album in a studio setting. Lots of really, really cool old analog vintage equipment in there, which was kind of cool to sort of experiment with. And pass it over to Steve.
Steve Clifford, and I am the drummer, half of the rhythm section, the other half being absent today. Unfortunately, Fred couldn't join us, but I play the drums in Class of 91. And I guess just reflecting on this newest album, I have to thank Brock for bringing in the idea of doing a vinyl release for the album. We've never done that before. So we actually have them in our hands now, and it's pretty exciting.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of a game changer, at least for me, I think. So, yeah.
You guys have done CDs though, right?
No,
Oh, you guys haven't done any physical?
No.
It's the only thing that we've actually built that you can actually hold on to besides stickers.
That's really cool. Is it like
And merch. Let's not forget. I'm silk screening in my basement for the last 5 years.
So is it like colored vinyl or is it kind of just like black vinyl?
Old school black.
So this is actually like the first time you guys have ever done studio. Did you get like so was this like a rented studio from like someone else, or is this kind of like a producer studio that also is helping you with the album?
Yeah, so it's little Bullhorn, which is down in
Little Italy.
area there. So Dave Draves was the engineer there for it. So 2 of the songs which we'd recorded a little bit earlier there, we had done ourselves in our own home studio. Sort of the approach that we've taken with our previous albums is it's sort of very much a DIY approach on it, sort of layering instruments as we went along. So this was the first time that we had an opportunity to sort of all go in and do sort of a live off the floor type of thing, which was a very different experience for us as well. I don't know if Brock, you want to talk a little bit about sort of the connection with Dave and how that came up.
Yeah, well, I'll touch on first what Ian just said there, the live off the floor. So in our own home studio, it's always it's layered tracks. So you're kind of singing into the void and listening to beats. This was a much more visceral experience of all of us playing together and feeding off each other. But yeah, Dave and I have been socially connected for some time, which was nice. I've had a tour of the studio. I got an opportunity to bring Ian down to the studio as well. And it was decided that we would just get in there, and having that familiarity made it a nice, easy experience. And Dave's just so amazing to work with and tell some pretty wonderful stories.
So all of your music beforehand was all like self-produced, like all that.
Yeah, that's correct. So yeah, we've got 2 albums under the belt there. The first one came out just kind of right at the cusp of COVID there in 2020 October. I think that one came out. It just turned 5 years actually, which was kind of hard to believe. And then we knocked another one out back in 2022, Lost Stories, which was sort of the precursor to this one. Yeah, and that's all been done by ourselves. It's cost neutral, which is kind of kind of thing. You kind of be able to do it on your own schedule. We're very fortunate. Steve's set up in his basement, which is also where we rehearse, is kind of fit for purpose for that type of thing. But yeah, having the opportunity to actually kind of do it sort of in a more of a group setting was a good opportunity that we wanted to jump at as well. And like Brock, I think had mentioned too, like having sort of an outside perspective on it as well, which is very different. Like Dave's sort of his sort of production credit, so like it's sort of spans a whole bunch of different styles of
styles
music.
and decades
of music as well, right? So he had some kind of interesting sort of perspectives on things which we hadn't really considered as well. But yeah, I got everything recorded there, and then we still ended up mixing it in the box ourselves as well, just to sort of take the time to kind of horse around with it a little bit and get it off for sort of final listens and then off for mastering, and here we are.
It also meant that the 2 tracks that we had done at home weren't so disparate sounding compared to the additional ones we did in studios.
Yeah,
they come out sounding pretty level, considering how wildly different the process was.
Yeah, that was a bit of a kind of a uneasy sort of feeling, right? Because like those 2 songs were written sort of with the rest of this album. They were kind of like sort of the first two songs that were kind of led to sort of the full album. Some life events kind of got in the way there, was sort of recalibrated the songwriting process a little bit. But having these 2 things that were already done, like you're kind of debating, like, you want to re-record them, or do you want to kind of keep them and see if we can make the other ones sort of like line up with it? And it actually worked out quite well. It does, at least to our ears, it sounds pretty consistent, and sort of keeps the general flow and energy that we were trying to go for. So
helps that we have a pretty awesome mastering guy. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Who do you guys get for mastering?
So it's Christian Montano. So he's down in Toronto. So he's with Montano Mastering. Yeah, we've got put onto him when we did Lost Stories there. He was referenced to us there, and yeah, he's an absolute prince to work with there. He's really, really good, and his experiences like just range like the whole like genre spectrum as well. I think he's got a couple of Junos under his belt, so he's got a really, really good studio, and that's all he does is master. So he's pretty good to kind of say, like, this is sort of the look and feel that we're trying to go for. Yeah, and he's really, really wonderful to deal with. So.
Yeah, it's good getting someone who only focuses on the one thing. Usually they end up getting pretty good at it eventually.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was going to ask about that also, about the first 2 songs or first 2 singles for the album, which were 2023, 2024, Broken Window and Burn Down. And I don't know if you guys want to talk like more in depth about that, like how, like, because 3 years in the process of making an album is like a pretty long time. So like, how did that end up becoming like a thing?
Yeah. So when we kind of like finished with Lost Stories and kind of had a little bit of time under our belt there, so we got the sort of the songwriting bug going again. Typically the way that I've kind of like maybe sort of got into like songwriting in my sort of my current state is I do like to sort of map out different types of things that I might want to write about. Not like hyper thematic, but I do like to sort of focus on things that are like either sort of front of mind or things that are kind of like, bugging around in my head a little bit there too, that I might want to get off my chest in some ways. So those were the first 2 songs that we wrote. We recorded them ourselves, and then a variety of different life events kind of got in the way there too. Brock got quite sick for a period of time.
Short period,
but it kind of refocused the mind there for a little bit, and then your dad passed away as well, which put another kind of wrench in things as well. But then also, I think some of those experiences and sort of talking those things out, and some things I was sort of dealing with, and a variety of other things going on in the world, started to recalibrate a little bit things that we might want to write, and just sort of put a different different vibe on. So in a kind of an oddball way, it was a little bit fortuitous because I think some of the emotions and some of the moods and whatnot that were captured on the new album were very much reflective of those types of experiences that kind of fed into it. At least that's from my perspective, at least. So
Also, we're not a band that goes into the studio to create songs. Like we know the songs when we go in, even at home when we're demoing them in my basement. We know the songs before we commit them to tape or whatever. So it's just what works for us. And
yeah. And I don't think there's because that is a question that comes up a lot, songwriting process and do you do a bunch of singles? Do you kind of we're maybe a little bit old school from the perspective that I actually like the concept of an album that you can listen to start to finish, and it does have a sequence to it. It has there's a bit of a logic and a bit of a flow. Yeah, and again, there's no right or wrong way to approach that, but to us, an album is like a storybook in a way, right? It does capture a period of time in our lives. Again, it is an opportunity to sort of work some things out or get some things off the chest that you're dealing with and stuff. But it's very interesting if you listen and look at the trajectory of the three albums. The way that we've often described Eyes on Fire, which was our first one, is very much it's a bit of a patchwork because we were new as a band, but also new back into playing music after a relatively long adult hiatus, getting back into songwriting again. So it was very much sort of every song had a bit of a distinct flavor to it, which then allowed us, as we worked that stuff out and got to play it a little bit more in live context, started to hone and finesse a sound that kind of became Class of 91's sort of signature through line. And then from there, when we started to put Lost Stories together, we kind of often joke that Lost Stories is kind of like the angry sibling of Eyes on Fire, because it is a little bit more heavy, but still melodic, but heavy, a little bit more in your face, maybe tackling a few subjects that were a little bit more prevalent at that time in things. And then All Guesses is the kind of the next sort of evolution of that. And I think this album is interesting because we were a lot more about capturing mood and feeling and introducing a few different sounds. Brock got a couple of new pedals on the board there, which made a few interesting squawks that turned into actual compositions and stuff. So,
yeah, that was Julian Baker. I just love her guitar playing, and I got exposed to her board obviously through YouTube, and then bought the pedal and made them sounds, and now they exist on vinyl.
So was Class of 91 the first project you guys have done together, or is this So
Steve and I, we've known each other for a long time. So, I mean, obviously by looking at us and by the band title, you could probably roughly guess what vintage we are. We are high school graduates of the year 1991. So Steve and I used to play music way back when we were younger. But then I say life just sort of took us all off in a bunch of different directions. So you kept playing.
In a way, I haven't been a drummer all my life, although I would like to have been. But yeah, when we were playing music together in our high school years, I wasn't playing drums. I was doing other goofy things like DJing and stuff like that. But so yeah, this is our first foray together as me on drums.
Yeah, and then so I mean, Brock and I got to sort of know each other just over music as well. And I think we always like to say Class 91 is sort of the culmination of a variety of conversations about it would be really, really nice to get back into playing music, right? So I always joke, most of my guitars and most of my music equipment were kind of like pieces of furniture in a corner of a room for many, many, many years. And then kind of getting back into that sort of got the bug into playing again and getting together with other people to play, and then starting to get it's I wonder what it'd be like to actually write a song, because it's been a very, very long time. And it just kind of gelled, and it's I mean, it's creative, it's social, it's fun. We've learned a lot as well, even all of these experiences with recording and learning how to mix and produce and all that type of thing. These are all, to our minds, are really, really fun and interesting experiences to have. And we're very fortunate to have sort of been accepted back into the Ottawa music scene and be able to make a racket and get out there and play some shows and make some music. So
We should throw a nod to Todd too.
Yes.
Because I mean, each of the albums is quite a bit different, as Ian's alluded to. But one major difference in this third album is the fact that we brought in a violin player, a fellow I know named Todd Duckworth, and he's joined us on 2 songs, but he'll actually be joining us on a 3rd song live when we play at the Dominion Tavern. So that's I don't see how violin would have fit into the other 2 albums at all. And it's a pretty big evolution, I think, in our sound, at least on those tracks.
yeah. It's interesting too, because we've always had an acoustic instrument, like Brock alluded to before. Like he does play acoustic guitar on a few songs.
Eyes on Fire, especially, yeah.
Yeah,
But also the one
and
Hideaways, yeah.
on Lost Stories. But where the acoustic guitar doesn't feature on the latest album, we said we brought in a violin, and then Brock has got a variety of like washy, crazy reverbs going on and stuff there too. So again, it's just like the sound just sort of like morphs, and but the through line is still there, which is interesting to say. Like, you know, when Steve sort of floated the idea of it's like, hey, maybe a violin track would actually work well here, and it actually did. Kind of has a bit of like a Warren Ellis kind of vibe to it there, but it's an interesting sort of approach that, as long as things like sort of they're logical and they make sense, I don't think we necessarily have to be like sort of like restricted to like really hard boundaries on stuff either, right? So yeah, it was an interesting addition for sure. So
Well, no, yeah, you definitely want to be a bit experimental with like your music and kind of see what you can kind of include there. Like, I don't know if the right way is like, how can I be different, but more or less like, how can I kind of expand on the music I'm already doing?
yeah.
And I definitely think like hearing a violin in one of your songs is gonna be a really cool one. What song is that?
So there's 2, Only F, which is the instrumental opener on there, has it, and then Nothing Special, which is the first track on the B side, which is sort of a more sort of like lower tempo one in there too.
until it isn't.
Until it isn't. Yeah. It's definitely got a build on that one. It was kind of fun to record and fun to mix there too, because if you're watching the needles on it, it's like really, really, really quiet until the end, and the needles are just like slamming like at the end of it, which is pretty cool. It's a good build. And then when Brock was referencing some of that Julian Baker influence in there too, like some of the pedals that she incorporates into her sound, we're experimenting with on there as well, which is kind of fun. Yeah, so a little bit of a kind of a shoegazy style element to it, but it's an interesting composition. So.
I wanted to ask also, well, just before we start talking a bit more about the album, are you going to be able, do you guys want to talk about like the majority or like all the songs on the album, or is that more something you want to kind of save for like when it comes out?
It's your party, man. We can take this conversation wherever you want.
Well, no, it's your episode, so like however you guys want to do this.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk a little bit about the album. Yeah, and feel free to interject. So again, like we don't, at least up to this point, like we never really sat down with a kind of we want this to sound like this, right? Even it's funny too when people ask us like, who do you sound like, or what genre of music are you? I mean, you have to, just for like EPKs and like answering people's questions, you have to kind of put some type of labeling on it. So we tend to kind of go with like indie rock punk or something in that general nature. But this one is interesting. I think part of it, if it's looking at maybe some of the things that we were writing about, maybe influence certain types of moods that were going on there. Some new equipment sort of being introduced into our stage rigs, which is different. Steve mentioned Todd's joining us on a couple of songs on violin. And I think even working at Little Bullhorn too, which again, you're dealing with like a lot of like really, really old like analog equipment. We recorded to tape, which was interesting. Really, really nice, like old vintage boards, vintage compressors, vintage microphones, like a lot of ribbon mics and stuff like that there too. So that was kind of injecting a kind of like a lo-fi kind of vibe into some of it. Whereas when we recorded ourselves, and even with Broken Window and Burn Down, it's a lot more punchy and crisp. Whereas a lot of the stuff that we were doing at Little Bullhorn ended up having a much more sort of a dark underbelly to it, which again captured a really, really interesting mood on a lot of it. So, I mean, subject matter wise, I mean, it's kind of cutting the gamut of like, you know, some of the songs kind of deal with like environmental instability, like Red Sun is an example of that. Some of it's dealing with kind of like just crap that we deal with at our age as well, like watching, you know, like relationships around us that, you know, you maybe one day thought were relatively stable or starting to kind of maybe fracture a little bit around the edges. You know, we had a couple of scenarios there in my personal life there too, where I was watching some people going through some pretty difficult times. So not so much writing about that individual experience, but I'm very, very interested in that sort of that concept or that thematic. So songs like Nothing Special, Over Now sort of touch on those types of things. State of the world type of stuff, you know, looking at in songs like Burn Down, for example, which is sort of dealing with sort of conspiracy and you know, disinformation type of stuff. Yeah, and just a lot of it is just sort of it's just capturing this chapter of our lives, the things that we're experiencing. But then also, like Brock and I talk about this a lot. We look back at sort of like, you know, we'll use the early 90s as an example, you know, when we were kind of like, you know, entering university and stuff like that. And a lot of the stuff that, you know, we're dealing with now is the stuff that we experienced when back then as well, which is kind of interesting to see some of that stuff come around again, right? So
Yeah, we're on the other side of the circle now.
yeah,
So going off that, actually, like how, like lyrics wise and kind of like meanings of songs wise and just like even just tone wise, like how would you compare this album to like Eyes on Fire?
Eyes on Fire, I say, is very, very different. And I say, like, I use sort of the patchwork analogy on that one, because some songs almost have a bit of like a kind of like an alt country kind of twang to them. Other ones like Destroyer are a little bit more kind of have a little bit more of a punk flavor to it. There's a bunch of stuff in between.
I feel like we were kind of testing the waters on stuff because we didn't have, like Ian mentioned, we don't really have a trajectory or a box that we wanted to fit into. It's just like, let's just make music, and they were all good songs, but they were a little all over the place.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
and even instrumentation though. Yeah, I mean, when we first got together, we fell on instruments that we basically had. I was only on an acoustic guitar when we first got together. So that's all I really had when we sort of formed as a band and the first songs got written. I had to go and buy an electric guitar to be a part of the band. I think I might have had one, but I can't remember.
Yeah.
But I ended up buying the guitar to get the sound.
Like this is some type of like ultimatum or something.
Well, it was a wonderful experience.
If you want to be in this band, you must go buy an electric guitar.
Just the direction it was taken, though. That's why in Eyes of Fire, you got 3 or 4 songs that have the acoustic, because that's just what I was playing at the time, and we were trying to find our sound. I ended up having the Gretsch, which the way my understanding of how I got there, at least the way, is Ian was playing his Les Paul, I was playing the double humbuckers as well too, and not a lot of difference between what we were playing. So the sounds was just, you'd have these like periods in the song where there was separation, and then it would just sort of come together and it was gone. So I picked up some single coil guitars and changed the sound, but then Ian also sort of changed the composition so that we weren't playing open standard tunings following each other around the same chords. Now there's a lot of offset capos, there's a lot of sort of overdubbed leads, both back and forth, I guess, on some of the stuff we're doing. So there's a lot more, what did Fred's dad say? Dynamicism. Yeah. There's a lot more dynamicism in the songs. And now we have the guitars and we found our sound, right? So when we got to Lost Stories, it was like, we're not an acoustic backbone on these songs now. Hideaways needed it, but we went more electric. And then now on All Gas is Passed Off as Hope, again, we brought in some new sounds, and they're all electric, but there's this kind of shoegazy through line, but it's still got the Class of 91.
Yeah. Like
we're not letting go of that punk influence.
Yeah, and to what Steve was saying before too, like we tend to, before we sort of like record things, we tend to try to like workshop them live as well. And I can remember when we first started as a band, like I did not sing. Like that was something I kind of said, I'm going to try to sing, but I still don't consider myself a singer. I'm just the person that actually happens to sing the lyrics. But a lot of it too, when we were recording and writing the songs on Eyes on Fire, you hear something in your head, you sort of put it down. Even when you're recording it, you can kind of get away with what you're hearing in your head, and then you try to deliver it live. And I found, and a lot of the constructive feedback I was getting there too is like, yeah, like it's good, but you actually have a really, really hard time hearing what you're saying. So with that, I found as the sort of the energy of our music started to evolve, I was getting a lot more confident in finding that range, and that's where I think a lot of it sort of then became a little bit more on the chin there with sort of a more kind of an indie sort of punk influence, because that just sort of seems natural for my voice at least, right? But it's funny. Like I've always considered songwriting and music to be a delivery system as well, right? So even though again we have sort of a sound that we've sort of fallen into, I think again one of the things we like about this third album is that because it is exploring different types of moods and textures as well, is that because that's what makes sense for this particular story, right? To be told. So if it is going to be a little bit more washy or ambient or or a little bit more direct and in your face, I think that's very intentional for the way that we want to sort of approach the sort of the songwriting process.
So like in terms of like when you guys found your sound, do you guys think like maybe like on purpose or kind of just like ended up happening? Do you think like when you guys found your sound, like did you guys draw any like specific influence from any bands that you guys like listen to personally?
Yeah, that's a fair question. I think we're very, very big sort of believers in the fact that people have a musical DNA, right? So when you're probably in your late teens to early 20s, that's oftentimes where the vast majority of someone's musical DNA is developed, right?
It's like the formative years.
Pretty much, right? Music. Because that's the stuff that you're listening to all the time. That you may be going to see your first live shows. These are the things that are making a real significant impact on you. So for us, I mean, having grown up in the sort of like the late 80s and the early 90s, like a lot of the stuff that we were being exposed to was like, was bands like Fugazi, Husker Du. It's like Bob Mould is a big influence of my playing. I mean, you saw a bunch of crazy ass bands in Vancouver when you were living.
Yeah, I was in Vancouver in the early 90s. So, I mean, seeing Chrome Dog and Biff Naked before she became Biff Naked and Moist on the Cusp and Cadillac Tramp stuff. But I mean, I didn't miss the Cult when they came through. I didn't miss the Cure back in the 80s. Stone Temple Pilots.
Yeah,
just all that stuff was still fresh and they were at their
and then you
peak.
Had a variety of influences there too, right?
Yeah, it's hard to name some, but I was listening to like ambient music, like everything. I was a big fan of college radio, so I would kind of tend to more to the fringe than the mainstream stuff.
Yeah, so. And then Fred is heavily influenced by jazz and Motown, right? So he's got a completely different trajectory, which influences his bass playing style as well. So I guess all that to say is like I think you can listen to our stuff and just say, oh yeah, there's definitely like a 90s influence there. Well, yeah, of course there is, because that was our musical DNA growing up. Those are the things that impacted us. But we're not closed to just sort of staying within those parameters. Like that's kind of the initial formative box. But what Brock was saying with like an artist like Julian Baker, I'm a big fan of M83, like a lot of like washy, like ambient reverbs and synthesizers. So even though that doesn't translate into, if you don't listen to a Class 91 song, you say, oh, that sounds like M83. But there's a lot of stuff from a band like that I'm really, really interested in sort of putting underneath some of the sounds. So like washy reverbs that are kind of there, but kind of not. Some sort of like synthesis on stuff that's kind of there, but kind of not. Like it's all little threads that you can pull on that I think to capture mood. And yeah, so I think it's an interesting approach to take. but yeah, definitely like there's going to be that stuff that we sort of grew up on, which is always going to be there. We're never going to be able to shake that off.
But I think it's important to also recognize that the stuff that's being done now is also very influential.
Yeah.
Like I talk about Julian Baker. Like I went down the Boy Genius rabbit hole. I really like what that project was. And I got introduced to Phoebe Bridgers and, you know, her influences from Elliott Smith. So that's interesting because I'm listening to new stuff that I really like, which is pulling me back to old stuff. So I got reintroduced to Elliott Smith again and went and got his vinyls again and started listening. It's almost reverse engineering my way back to like Boy Genius. But now I'm sort of down an Interpol rabbit hole going, I really like these sounds. But, you know, there's a lot of really good music coming out now. And then of course the Ottawa music scene itself is, I mean, I'm wearing a Just Fine shirt right now. I love what Just Fine is doing. I love what that project is. And so I find that I'm being nostalgically influenced from the past, but currently influenced by what's happening. And there's a bit of a circle there.
Yeah.
There's a bit of a circle there. And, you know, there's a lot of shoegazy stuff coming out right now. And, you know, that's pulled me back into the shoegaze of old. How did they get here and what's influencing a generation behind me such that it's bringing out new music in the scene? It's a wonderful journey. Yeah. Wonderful journey.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot too, how there's like a lot of bands, like especially in shoegaze getting really popular right now, like especially like Deftones is the big name that everyone's kind of like listening to. I don't know, because like it always seems to be something like that, how like something will like come back after like a few decades or something like that. What do you guys think is going to be the next music genre that kind of comes back?
Well, if you jump on any of Alan Cross's podcasts or whatnot, he's done a lot of stuff that references these cycles attached to the politics of the time or the economic state of the time. And I think there's a 12 or 13-year cycle he talks about between pop and rock and stuff. I don't know exactly where we are right now, but you know, as things get harder, as they are, you know, across a few different bands within the spectrum right now, not bands, but you know, through lines within the spectrums of our social and cultural existence right now, something's going to come forward that I would suggest is probably a bit angry or frustrated, right? So whether that manifests as punk or rock again, or maybe it's a shoegaze. It's going to be something different than what's out there, but I personally don't think it can stray too far from what exists because the influences are so entrenched in the algorithms now too, right? So, so
to that point, like there's an interesting band which I quite like out of the UK called High Vice. So they're kind of like a bit of a post-hardcore sort of through line for their stuff. But they pull in all sorts of like interesting, like kind of like late 80s kind of sounds, and there's even like some like kind of like dancey stuff in there. But to Brock's point about like reflecting the signs of the time, like that band is all about like this the state of life in the UK right now, right? So like, and they're getting a lot of traction, getting like really, really kind of, you know, heavy delivery, high energy performances, but with a really, really kind of like positive message around it, trying to address some really, really like complicated social conditions in their country. So I think, yeah, as things kind of keep going in the direction that they are, I think, there'll definitely be more of a.
I think the music's going to be amazing coming up. Yeah, it's
lots to write about.
Yeah, I mean that's where we got the Clash, and that's the Sex Pistols came out
exactly.
of that.
I was going to say that sounds a lot like the Sex Pistols.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, so you asked about what genre. I mean, there's so many subgenres of genres.
Well, yeah,
it's hard to land on that one, but I think it's going to be really interesting to see where, you know, where that lands, and it's going to be a combination, and I hope that it's saying what, or becomes or remains the platform by which people can say what they need to say safely, honestly. Yeah, because music can still get away with saying some stuff musically, right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, yeah, like with what Brock was saying, like about the whole like timeline type thing, it kind of makes sense to think about it now, how like, because like the 90s and like late 90s and then 2000s was kind of like that angsty time for everybody. I don't know, because I was like obviously around where like 9/11 happened and stuff like that, and like immediately after that you had like that kind of emo post-hardcore thing that kind of happened for a while. So I don't know if that's like, so yeah, like if there's any other major event that happens, you know, you could see the next edition of MCR or something come out or something. But yeah, I think honestly, yes, we should. Okay, wait, I'll cut this out. Okay, because I'm taking like a right turn now. Yeah. But all right. So I think, yeah, we should kind of. All right, so I did want to start talking a bit about the new album now. I think it's a good time to kind of move over to that. And we'll start out with the singles first, obviously, but I wanted to talk, because I know you kind of mentioned, like, especially more like Burn Down, you kind of mentioned what that one's kind of about, but I wanted to talk a bit more specifically about, like, you know, what it was like when you guys made the songs, like, especially because you guys said you guys had some tough stuff going on during the time and stuff, so, like, kind of a bit about how that timeline kind of went for these 3 singles. So starting off with, like, Broken Window, like, so, because that was when you guys kind of started with the idea, I guess, for the album you guys wanted with this.
Yeah, so they so kind of the general way that I will approach songwriting is that I'll kind of like almost like word cloud a little bit in a notebook, like different types of things that I might be interested in, like writing a song about. And some of them get mixed, and other ones become actual songs. So Broken Window and Burn Down were written about this around the same time. We recorded at the same time, but we just released them sort of at separate intervals. And then that was kind of a hard stop because we had some live stuff that we were doing, and then we had some like personal stuff that we were sort of dealing with, and that sort of put a bit of a pause in there. So the next batch of songs were actually written a fair amount later and a little bit more in direct sequence to each other. So as I mentioned there, Broken Window is kind of like it's a bit of a sort of a reflection on aging. It's also a reflection on friendships that, you know, had sort of a bit of a profound influence at one chapter in life, but then maybe started to sort of dematerialize with the passage of time. Burn Down was again a little bit more of a rant against sort of conspiracy theory type of stuff there, and disinformation, which is sort of a prevalent and ongoing part of our social fabric. And then Over Now, when we got to that one, which is the most recent single, again, that one is a little bit of a meditation on relationships that, again, are starting to disband for a variety of circumstances. And again, it's just one of these things that, like, I mean, it exists at every stage of people's lives there too, but at our vintage as well, you start to see, you know, people that we know who've, you know, they're just starting to go off in different directions or are being sort of negatively impacted by that. So that one is kind of more of a reflection of, you know, sort of through the eyes of the protagonist couple in this, watching some of their friends' relationships go down some really, really hard paths, right? So they're sort of taking solace in what they have, but then also feeling kind of remorseful and dealing with sort of the emotional baggage of those their friends' relationships going in a bit of a difficult direction. And in other ones that people haven't heard yet. So there's a few interesting little detours on there. The opener, which is an instrumental, so that was kind of an interesting one from the perspective. It's just like you know, our instrumental songs sort of like looked at as a bit of a cheap way of having to write lyrics. But when we started, the idea for that song actually came out of this guy when we were in the studio, made a noise. So we were in the studio at two different sessions. We were in there in December, and then we finished things off in June. And when we're in there in December and we're kind of like horsing around, getting some sounds down, he made a noise with his guitar that I'm like, okay, that actually has to become something. So yeah, it was a very washy reverb and fuzz combination going on. So I'm like, okay, we kind of parked that one, built it into something. And it's kind of an interesting opener because it sort of sets a bit of a mood and a bit of a stage. And it's kind of like I hear a little bit of an optimistic trajectory in that song, and then with Todd kind of coming in on the violin in there as well, kind of like this dirty violin going on, and it's just an interesting, very very kind of a, you know, shortish prelude into what's to come, because when the next song hits, it's just like basically just a giant slap in the face for about 4 minutes. So it was kind of an interesting approach. And then this guy decides he wants to write some of his own lyrics as well. So that was kind of a fun trajectory as well. So, which was cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always writing.
Yeah,
I'm always writing, and I've got all kinds of songs I've written, but more often than not on an acoustic guitar. And I think Class of 91 has a sound that I don't think I write to. And Ian's so good at what he does, I don't want to mess it up. But on this particular song, I was playing with the pedal actually, and I had a riff. And I brought the riff in, and that's what we started playing with. I just happened to have lyrics behind it. But that's an interesting song. It's called This Too Shall Pass, because I don't think we finished writing that until the studio. That was the only song that wasn't done until the studio. And it sounds nothing like what I brought into the studio. So that is a Class of 91 song. It just has my words floating on top of it. So that was a unique experience.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, right? Because it's like, because and I find this even with other songs that we write there too. Like if I look at, just take for example, if I look at lyrics that I'll jot down. I'll do lyrics before music. That's just sort of the approach that works best for me. What's on the written page and what ends up being the final cut is they're not the same thing. There's always a process of editing and elimination and maybe adding something where something didn't really necessarily come to mind. Same with arrangement as well. Like you may hear something in your head. This was a really, really interesting song to sort of experiment with, right? Because again, we had a general structure, and then we just sort of ended up kind of just playing with different concepts and different levels of intensity and different types of things.
Yeah, I mean, Fred's bass line right off the bat changed the direction of the song completely. And then your marching beat drums, which I love, changed the direction of the song. So it came together as a whole through a lot of experimentation.
Yeah. And I think what was, from a studio experience perspective, what makes that song so interesting and so special is we were, I don't know how many takes we'd done, like say 4 or 5 for sake of argument, and it was landing well. And then Dave, the engineer, was just like, I've got enough tape left to do one more take, but we have to get it within like this amount of time or we're gonna run out of tape. And that's the one that actually landed on there because it had like an urgency and an energy to it. Maybe because we were kind of like, oh shit, we're kind of at the end of the tape line here, but that's the one that actually stuck. And I think that was a cool, for at least for us, having not had the experience of working sort of in a live off the floor setting. I don't necessarily know we would have been able to capture that same type of energy or mood by doing sort of a layered approach that we've historically done. So I think that was a really kind of an interesting experience to have.
So one thing I did want to ask about the album itself was kind of like, because you kind of did mention how there's kind of like especially earlier, like you did mention like how you like how like albums have like a story to them and like a continuous like theme to them. Like, does this album have like necessarily a story to it? Kind of like, say like, again, going back to like MCR, but like their albums, they like to do a kind of like an actual story going on throughout.
Yeah, I wouldn't say like a story, like it's not a Yes album. Like doesn't have like some like kind of like a concept that runs start to finish, but there's definitely through lines that go there. And the first sort of experimentation that we had with something like that was on Lost Stories. That Lost Stories has almost companion songs on it. So what I mean by a companion song is like, if you look at on Lost Stories, there's 2 songs, These Four Walls and Hideaways. They're both songs that are reflective of experience during the pandemic. One of them was through the perspective of sort of the confinement and the isolation of the pandemic. So looking at it through that lens and those types of experiences. And then Hideaways is the complete opposite of that. It is about the freedom of exploration and being able to sort of navigate, through a city devoid of people, right? So I actually kind of liked looking at ways to sort of marry up different songs on there, maybe looking at a topic from two different perspectives, or having something that's sort of like looking at something and maybe capturing it through sort of two different levels of intensity, maybe. So we kind of brought that philosophy onto this one as well, that most of the songs on there do have some companion somewhere else on the album. So it's not a story that has kind of like a beginning, a middle, and an end, but there's definitely like a logic and a flow to the topics that we chose to cover on this one.
Quick side tangent I kind of want to ask a bit about is kind of like, for Eyes on Fire, did you guys end up like making that like at all like during COVID? Like,
Yeah.
Oh, that's a really, really good question. So the short answer is yes. The more nuanced answer is we were about probably 85% done.
Everything but vocals.
Everything but vocals.
Everything was laid once except vocals. So there was no do-overs.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So all the music was finished. So Steve, being the the smart guy that he is, we basically had to come up with a way that he could track it in his basement while I was recording it at my house.
I couldn't ask him to come over and wear a mask and track vocals. Like that's not
Yeah.
very
Yeah, exactly.
effective.
Yeah,
So.
it's not setting the right message given the conditions of the time. But so we figured out a way to do that. So we were able to land all the vocals, and then we just mixed it from there.
I believe we used Audio Movers was the tool.
Yeah.
It let us do real-time tracking from a remote location of the vocals. Like
Yeah.
it took a bit to get it working, but we didn't have this thing where Ian was kind of recording and sending me files. It was happening in real time, which was really cool because I was able to give him, feedback as kind of a producer role, which is the way we'd been doing the whole album up to that point, right?
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
it was nice to not have to totally throw away our process and invent something new. We just kind of made it work.
Yeah, and it was a good thing to do during that period where like everyone's kind of like confined to their respective places of residence. So jamming out an album was kind of cool. And then we released it in October, when again that was kind of at that period where things were open a minute and they were closed a minute. So you sort of threw it out into the ether, and it's like, okay, streaming, here you go. But yeah, we played our first show. I think it was in the fall, like Live on Elgin opened for a minute.
The first show after COVID.
Yeah. And we played for a much reduced audience. That had there was a flow of logic to the way that the venue was set up. But yeah, it was kind of like, all right, here world, here's yet another album on.
But coming out of COVID, and because we had done this, we actually were in a good place to play live.
Yeah.
So when the world opened up enough that we could get out into it, we had something to offer.
Yeah.
Which is really nice.
Yeah. Exactly. So, but it was an interesting problem to try to solve. So.
I also want to ask a bit about Lost Stories, because that one came out, even though it was in like later, like 2022, which is kind of when they kind of started being a lot lighter with that was like, when did they get rid of the code restrictions? Like 2023, I think.
There were 7 iterations of lockdown. So I can't even remember when the last, I don't know where the line is that says this is it, we're done COVID.
Yeah.
I can tell you, probably by the end of 2023, it was getting harder to book shows and stuff because there was more and more people were out and about.
Yeah.
The bands, the need to play, the need for people to listen to stuff, the ability to get out into the world and exist was probably a 2023 thing. What was the last high school graduation year that was under sort of a lockdown scenario? I think probably 2022 was the last really hard graduation for high school.
Yeah.
2023, if I recall, was a little bit more open. So Lost Stories would have come out like right in that valley between, this is COVID and this is COVID lifting. Yeah. That's probably where
we had our album release party for that one. It was because the album came out in 2022 October, I think. We had an album release party at House of Targ with guest room status, and Yeah, like at that time, it was pretty much kind of like in a good zone. I think I may have dipped a couple of times after that, and just sort of after a while, just kind of like, this thing is here to stay with us. So we just kind of just go out into the world and exist, right? But yeah, it was an interesting period. It was just like up and down. I remember we were playing a show with Stoby, and
Was it the Saw Show?
no, it was the one. It was at Avant Garde, and they had just announced that afternoon that things were going on to lockdown again the next day. So everyone was in there like all masked up with some like weird COVID variant like floating around the room, and like everyone just had like their last like kind of big hurrah, and then it was back to like nothing's open again for another period. It was a weird time. So.
I don't know. What was your guys' opinion on like the whole COVID restrictions and stuff like that?
I don't know. The way I would answer a question like that is people were making choices based on the information they had at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's complicated.
All right, and I want to move on a bit to the album release show, which again, for those listening who would like to go out to a nice show of rock and roll, that's going to be happening October 18th at Dominion Tavern with First the Last Stars and Crow's Feet. And I kind of want to kind of continue asking on that. What is your favorite venue to play at in Ottawa?
That's a really hard question to answer. Everyone that we played at is special for its own.
Yeah, they all listen. It's a hard question to answer because one, they all offer a different experience, and we get to work with different individuals behind the sound. We get to work with different venue owners, and every one of these experiences is unique, and they've all been wonderful. So to pick one is, I think, challenging. We've had most of our time, I would say, has probably been spent with Live on Elgin, which, John has been phenomenal with us, and it's been a great experience. But I mean, my favorite show, quite honestly, still is the one we played to nobody in Hamilton. Like the way we're saying, like, I don't know, just the energy of a bunch of bands with no audience sitting around in sweltering heat.
Yeah. Seriously?
Giving it your all was, there was just something really fun about it. And, and it was a complete DIY space, and, which isn't to suggest like, it's like I said, it's hard to, but you have every experience is unique. And we've worked with so many wonderful people and had so many good experiences. And I love the Ottawa music scene. I just haven't had a bad experience yet. I'm looking forward to playing new venues. We've been to the Dom before. This is our second time.
I'd like to get back to Saw. That was a pretty cool night.
That was a great night.
Yeah.
We played the Rainbow a couple of times, which is a wonderful venue. I think the only one that we haven't played is the 27 Club.
Mm-hmm.
No,
the old Zaphods. So it's. I would just parrot everything that Brock said there too. Like we've had nothing but good fortune. Always made to feel welcome when we play somewhere. And it is interesting for our vintage as well, right? To be playing music, because obviously we're playing to our peers, and then we're also trying to make something that hopefully resonates with a younger audience as well. And depending on which bands we're playing with, you can have some very, very interesting crowds there, which is a lot of fun.
We've got to play with a lot of great bands. So you can't just pick a venue. You can't just pick a band. It's been unique for sure. We did get to play Press though, right before COVID went down, which was a really cool experience. They're closed now. They closed during COVID. They made a valiant effort to stay open with some interesting models of groceries and stuff. But you look back on that, and nostalgia is tied to it right away. You're like, we got to play it. Yeah. It was a wonderful experience. I think we had all of our families there to some degree, which is really, really nice. Yeah. And then it disappeared. Yeah. So it's always going to sort of sit in memory as this amazing experience because it can never be sullied. Yeah. We can never get back in.
Yeah. One venue that unfortunately we didn't have a chance to play at, which was Sankel as well, which is another kind of a DIY space there down in Hittenburg. Really, really wonderful, really wonderful venue. Some of the first shows that we went to see back when we were getting Class 91 rolling were at that space. That was unfortunately, it was another COVID casualty as well. Ask a Punk was another one. We had a show.
Lined up for that. Yeah.
You know, a punk basement house show. It was a COVID casualty as well. So there's a few places that we wish that we had the opportunity to have played at, but yeah, just circumstances unfortunately just didn't allow that to happen. So.
Yeah, I definitely see that a lot. I think like another one that kind of suffered from COVID was like Cafe de Cup, maybe.
Yeah.
And you know, when I was talking to like a bunch of the bands from Punk Fest, they were kind of talking about that one because that's where that event kind of started, was Cafe de Cup.
Yeah.
Then they moved over to the Club Saw, which that's a pretty good venue to get for that, though.
Yeah, it's a good space for sure.
But I wanted to go back because you guys kind of mentioned like a Hamilton show with no one there. Like, how's that even happen? Was there literally nobody there?
Basically, nobody shows up. So
It was 45 degrees Celsius for starters. It was a hot.
It was an
hot-
outdoor show?
No, it was indoors, upstairs in an attic, and it was sweltering.
Yeah, like I think we did a temperature check in there, and inside it was 35 degrees.
That's
It was
crazy.
absolutely insane. So yeah, there was us. There was the other two bands that we played with, and I think there was like maybe 4 people from downstairs came up, said, "Hey, what's going on here?" And then just kind of like hung out. But it was an absolute blast. If you played in front of 4 people in your own city, that's humiliating. But if you played in front of 4 people in another city, it's like one of the best memories that we have of the show. Just because we just went all in. So it's like you have 2 choices. You can either be like, well, this is just like, why bother? But that's not our ethos. So we said, right, full on Class 91 show. Nice and loud, lots of bouncing around. We were just sweaty and nasty by the end of that. It was crazy, but it was a lot of fun.
So it was more like a jam sesh, if anything, kind of with like some other bands.
Yeah,
type of thing?
live rehearsal. But it was good. It was a lot of fun.
So for the album release show set list, are you guys thinking of playing like all new songs like from the album, or are you guys more like gonna kind of
We are actually going to play the album.
the whole album?
Yeah, we're gonna do some back catalog in the middle, but we are actually going to play the album as we recorded it.
So how many songs are going to be on this album?
So there's 10 in total.
Okay.
And then we'll inject a couple of other ones in the middle, but we had a chat about that. It's like, you know, some people may think that that's corny. We said, you know what, like that, I think that would actually be an interesting experiment to do it, because again, like there is a flow and there is an order to the way that we arrange the album. So we started jamming it out to see if it actually would translate. Because again, you can order something when you're actually like, you know, producing an album because it makes sense, but it doesn't necessarily always translate into like, you know, this song doesn't flow logically into that one. But once we jammed it out a bunch of times, and it actually made for a very, very interesting thing to listen to in our opinion. So we're going to give that the college try this time. So.
Yeah, I think the way we recorded the album was more as a way to capture our live experience of seeing the band live. At least that's my kind of take on it. And that's certainly the way we recorded it. It was had a very much a feeling of playing in front of an audience, even though the audience was one person, you know. So I think there's a logic to, you know, reproducing that, because it was kind of packaged around the idea of a live capture, in my view.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun. We've road tested most of the songs already, but there's a couple we've never played live. So I'm really excited, really excited to see how all that goes. Yeah. But then the song, it's nice to have a couple songs in the middle that people will recognize.
Yeah.
And certainly, I enjoy playing.
So what would you guys say are like your personal like favorite songs that aren't on this new album that you guys are going to advocate to kind of throw in the set list for that show?
That aren't on the new album?
Yeah.
Well, the advocation's done. We know exactly what we're playing. I don't know. How do you want to approach that, Ian?
Well, I don't know. We don't want to like completely spoil
everything,
but there are certain songs that we do tend to gravitate towards. We're not going to be, obviously, in the interest of time, that we're not going to be able to tap into every single one this time, but there are ones that definitely will make it onto most set lists most of the time, just because either the delivery is just it's just got an intensity. The crowd reacts nicely to it.
I was going to say that. I mean, this is actually where visceral understanding helps over, the binary aspects of an algorithm. It doesn't matter what we're streaming, we think people like. We actually see people's reactions to songs we played in the past. And we know the songs. I think we know the songs that are going to get people moving a little bit. And I think that's important when there's some new songs people won't understand. And as we alluded to, the second side of the album starts off with a slower song. So I think it's important to capture everybody's attention before we get into that. So I think the songs we've selected are ones that, will keep people's interest. And that's, it's playing music is fun for us, but I also feel there's a responsibility to the people that have come to see us play, and we need to make sure that we've captured their interest and given them a good time. So those songs reflect that, I think. Yeah, we take it quite seriously.
Yep.
So
yeah.
And
even too, even the concept of actually having a physical album too. I know that's something that was particularly important to Brock as a vinyl lover.
Well, that was more than vinyl though. That actually ties into some Lost Stories discussions we had. I mean, that for me was about having an artifact in the world, something that people could own, something that people could touch, something that could be passed down, something that could, that doesn't exist in the streaming world. I think, Lost Stories is a lot about losing people and not having access to answers to questions you might have had, or stories that are now buried in the grave kind of thing, literally and figuratively. But now here you've got an album that's going to exist, and there is a good song. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's more than that. I think it's having that artifact in the world is going to be amazing.
Yeah, and we're pretty pretty cognizant of making sure that lyrics are available on the various streaming platforms that we're on, but to actually have a lyric sheet as well, right? Because again, I've always been the belief when you're writing a song, you're obviously trying to write something that's important to you and to your band, and you're putting yourself on loan for either that one song or that 40 minutes of an album, right? So to have someone sit there and be able to listen to it, but then also follow along with the things that are important to us is I think is a meaningful experience. And to Brock's point there too, translating that live, again, we want to make sure that we are doing our best, and we have a responsibility to for someone who's decided to pay $15 or $20 to come see us and to see the bands that we've selected to join us. Yeah, we want to make sure that they have an experience that hopefully when they leave, it'll resonate with them, right? And maybe we want to go down that rabbit hole. It's that one song just sort of hit me in a way that I wasn't expecting. And
that'd be nice.
To them, so.
All right. Well, that's all I have for you guys today in terms of questions. Is there anything else you guys would want to throw in for people listening because this will be out before the show happens, so this will be before the album comes out as well.
Yeah. The usual plug. We can be found at co91band.com, which links out to just about everything that we have, but we're also obviously on all the different socials at co91band. Instagram is kind of our center of gravity for social media. But you can obviously find us on other platforms as well. We're on Bandcamp,
YouTube.
Ian,
Stephen,
where would somebody buy tickets to the show?
Oh, it's funny that you should ask that question. So obviously this show is being presented by Spectrasonic. So spectrasonic.com. You can obviously get tickets through there. You can also get it through our website, which will link to ticket links as well.
Or head on down to Vertigo and buy an actual ticket.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of fun.
Or hit us up. We'll put you. We do an e-transfer or whatever. But yeah. So does that answer your question, Steve?
Yes, thank you.
You're very welcome.
All right. Well, that's all I have for you guys. Thank you so much to the guys from Class of 91 for coming down to Algonquin College for this interview on Music on the Underground podcast. Make sure to, again, all guesses passed off as hope, out October 17th. Make sure to listen to that. And again, pick up tickets where they just said to go buy tickets for October 18th show at the Dominion Tavern. That's going to be a good show. That's probably 19 plus, right?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that a cash only venue as well still?
Yes, I think the Dom is a cash only.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So just we'll put it out there. It's good to have a few dollars in your pocket.
Yeah.